Ep33 of the Fashion Feed. This week's guest is Kristabel, and she is sharing her journey from going into knitwear design and transitioning into being a fashion blogger. Kristabel is a style-obsessed, food-loving Londoner, and she started the blog I Want You to Know during her fashion knitwear degree in 2008. Fast forward 10 years and it's evolved into a hub of eclectic fashion, travel and lifestyle content. Her background is in knitwear design and she interned in New York, showed at Graduate Fashion Week and gained experience at a high street design position. After finally satisfying the backpacking itch at age 25, she decided to establish a portfolio career in blogging, public speaking and social media consultancy. In this episode, we discuss Kristabel's earliest memories of fashion, which are so cute, I love them, and making the transition from designing into a full-time blogging career. Living a multi-hyphenate career in 2020, dealing with comparison and self-doubt as a freelancer, and what Kristabel is excited to blog about going forward.
Sure. So I would describe myself as an online content creator. Some people might say influencer. I know that's a word. It's a very loaded word.
Yeah.
It was coined by the media, I think. But the things I can end up doing are so varied. So it can be creating content for my blog, Instagram, YouTube. Sometimes I've been on panels. I've done public speaking, a little bit of consultancy, freelance writing, and then you can create your own things as well. So I've hosted a blogger support group, also an event called the Bloggers Market where we sell our old clothes and it's just really fun and creative. Trying to think anything else I've done, but you just end up dabbling in so many different things, which is so cool. Like I love living a varied life.
I remember when you did that Bloggers Market and I found out about it on the day and I was like, no. So I definitely want to come to the next one. It looked amazing.
Yeah, definitely. Come along.
Yeah. And so how did you get into fashion? Like, what was your earliest memory of it? Why do you love it? All those kind of things, like going back to the very beginning.
Wow, the very beginning. So my mum, I guess my mum is the reason. She's always been into fashion. So I'm trying to think what age. One of my birthdays, she bought me like Tyra Banks's book. I don't even know if anyone knows it. It was just like how to live like a model. And it was like her beauty tips, fashion tips. And it's so random to get this like as a child and, a book about the supermodels. And I've still got it. I wonder if it's probably on my shelf. And it literally had a profile on every model at the time. So there was Naomi Campbell, probably Claudia Schiffer. And I would just look at it. Because again, we didn't have the internet. So you would look at books and I would, look at the models and their heights. And it just looked very glamorous and exciting. I think I just absorbed some of my mum's passion for fashion. Oh gosh,
I know. I always end up saying that and I'm like, but it is that. There's no other way of describing it.
So that there was always magazines in the house. I'd always be looking at those. My mum would, she worked at Harrods, I think, when I was I'm trying to remember. She had me when she was 23, so I think at that point she might have been working on a beauty counter in Harrods. So there was a picture of her holding me as a baby and she's outside this Harrods van. So I've always been around that kind of thing. And even I remember at school, when you have to cover your books with sticky back plastic.
Of course.
She decorated my art sketchbook with all the logos of fashion brands. I probably have that and I can show you at some point. And I was scared because I was like, no one else will have this. And I covered it with like wrapping paper because I was so scared. Again, it's so weird to be scared of that as a child. I'm sure it would have been fine. It was art.
Yeah.
The fact that she did that was actually quite, now I look back, I'm like, wow, that was her way of caring. So there was that. And then I would draw. I used to love drawing in my room. I would draw my own fashion collections. I would look at whatever catalogue we had, probably like the Freeman's catalogue.
Yeah.
And I would look and I'm like, I would just draw what's on the page. And I'm like, well, this is my collection. I would stick the models on the wall. I'd give them names and identities. I think that relates back to the fashion book I had. So it's really interesting, like thinking back to then and how I was creating, visually and hoping to design. And that's where it all started.
It's so funny, isn't it? The things that we remember, like that book obviously had a massive impact on you, but without even realizing. And I know we were talking just before that it takes time to reflect back on things that made a big impact, and that is obviously one of them. That her buying that book has shaped your career in a way that, like, all these years later, and it sparked something within you, some creativity that you really loved, and it's nice. Yeah, I like it. I like that she sort of cultivated that creativity in you as well, because the amount of people that I speak to that say, oh, my parents pushed me like down an academic road, and your creativity is just for hobby or having it at the weekend, but go and get a proper job. So that's amazing that your mum like encouraged that creativity within you from a young age.
Yeah, I think my mum, and definitely my grandparents as well. So when I was young, they would pick me up from school because my parents worked. So I would go to my nan's house after school, and just I would draw. I would go on teletext as well. Like, it was so weird. I reflected on this, and I was like, I wasn't just drawing, but I was on teletext. So that was like the internet of the time. Like, there was so much. It was like another world.
You'd book a holiday, wouldn't you, through teletext?
Yeah, and I think you could. How did you could text teletext, but before, I mean, I was young when I don't know, when I discovered it, it was like another world. It was amazing, but you could get your messages on teletext. And I think, again, that's when I started to discover a community of sorts. And I also would sing as well. Like, in my grandparents would take me singing. So I think they definitely helped with my creativity. And it's interesting because at one point my mum was like, oh, no, you're going to do A-level English and this. And I was like, no, I'm not. So I think I've also been quite headstrong, and I don't think she would have pushed me into an academic career. But I think there was a moment when I was 16 and she was like, actually, no, maybe you should do this. And I was like, no. Yeah, so at my grandparents' house, I was obsessed with teletext. And then I would sing, I would rewrite lyrics. I think I rewrote the theme tune to the Flintstones because my brother had just been born. It was like Lewis, Little Lewis, instead of however it goes. Yeah. So again, I was creative in so many different ways. I think when you're a child, you've got the time and the energy. And I wasn't necessarily out playing with friends, I guess. It was just in the house. What can you do in the house? You can write a song, you can draw, you can, go and snoop around. Like, I would go like in the front room, like no one would actually go to the front room because it was like the display room. There were all these nice like family photos and ornaments. So I would go in there and like snoop around and then go back to the kitchen and do something. And yeah, it's interesting to look back at that time and think about how it's influenced me now, because now I love online communities and now I'm trying to get creative in other ways. So
And so from studying or like doing your colouring books and everything when you were younger, how did that sort of transition into a career as you were growing up? So you didn't start off as being a blogger, did you? You were a knitwear designer.
Yes. So at school, you obviously have to make a choice. And I think I was very clear about what I wanted to do quite early on. I sort of went, at first I wanted to be a model, and then I thought that's not going to happen. I think before that I said chef because I love food. Like, when you're young, you're just very like, I like food, so I want to do this. I thought, I want to be a fashion designer. But I don't know if there was actually a reason. It's weird. Maybe it was a result of reading that book, seeing the models, realizing I wasn't going to be a model, but then thinking, how can I get close to that? So yeah, I think that's quite rare to know what you want to do at a young age, unless you want to be a doctor or something. I think I was, one of the people in my friendship group that had this goal. And once I got a careers interview, I said, yeah, I want to be a fashion designer. How do I do that? And they were like, okay, so you need to do art foundation and then a degree. And I was like, okay, great, I'll do that. Yeah. So I literally, at first I thought, going to do straight fashion degree. But then I was always doing a bit of textile-y stuff. So my nan taught me how to knit. I can't remember what age, like early teens. And then I sort of stopped it for a while. So the first thing I made was a scarf, and it kept getting longer and longer. It was such a skinny scarf. I was knitting it for months. I would take it on the bus. I would knit it like in the canteen. I would wrap it around like 15 times. Ridiculous. But I'm trying to think, I think it was just fun to create something out of nothing. Yeah. And there were some books. I think I got a book out from the library, and it was like, you can knit a bag out of plastic bags. So back in the day, when you would get different coloured plastic bags, you could actually, cut it up, make it into yarn, knit something. So I think I enjoyed the tactile side of, creating. And then you know, I loved drawing. I think I could do a bit of everything. I used to love drawing. I used to love painting. I think with art, you can, once you figured out your style, you can do a bit of everything.
Yeah.
But when did I decide? I think I did my art foundation, and that kind of confirmed that I should go down the textiles route. I wasn't the neatest sewer. Like, my hand sewing was awful.
Yeah.
And also, I forgot to say, my mum made her wedding dress, and my mum's always sewed.
No way.
So yeah, my mum, I got to go to my parents' wedding when I was 4, and she made her dress, all the bridesmaids' dresses, and my flower girl dress. So there were always paper patterns in the house. There was always, you know, sewing stuff. And she tells me that she was still making her veil on the day of the wedding. And I feel like I'm still that kind of person. I'm quite lucky.
Yeah.
So yeah, obviously that's a big impact to have someone who's sewing, and you see that something gets created from nothing, and it really makes you appreciate like what goes into stuff. Like, I used to do dance club at school, so she would make I think she made some costumes. When I did ballet, she made my character skirt. She was like, oh, I'm not buying this skirt. I will use this old duvet cover, and I will buy the ribbon, and I will make you a skirt. So she's always been quite resourceful as well. So I think I knew my sewing was never going to be as neat as hers, but I thought with knitting, I think the fact that knitting gives you these constraints, so you've got the needles, but you're kind of forced to be neat. Once you figure out how to knit, you can be neat without actually being a neat person, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
So I did the art foundation, realized that I needed a mixture of fashion and textiles, and tried to find the right course. So I thought, actually, okay, let me go to Brighton. I need to go to Brighton. I want to be by the sea. Brighton will be perfect. And I'm quite a perfectionist. I've only just realized this. So at the time, I was very single-minded. That was my first choice. I had no second choice. And I remember going for the interview, and I saw one girl with like a suitcase full of work, and I had a portfolio, like a normal 8-1 portfolio, thinking, that's fine. I didn't get in, and I was so devastated. And I remember that I actually emailed the tutor to get feedback, and I did not take that well. As I don't know where, it's probably on an AOL account. I don't even know if I could access it. But I don't think my work was up to standard. And now I look back, I'm like, I think, because I did so much work to get into Brighton, so I actually managed to get an A. I think for my A, was it A? It must have been A level. So I actually did so well at school because I was so focused on getting into Brighton. So I achieved a different goal. Like, I got the maximum, which, it's great. I look back and I'm like, well, that's good. And I think that's a good way to look at life. Like, if you go towards one goal, you might realize something else or achieve something else at the same time. So I'm trying to think what happened after that. Got rejected from Brighton. I had a year out. So I worked in Topshop because I want, working in Topshop, you get the discount. It was quite a fun, like, social life. We'd go out. So I think it was good to have that year and just think about what I wanted to do. And then I found my degree at Nottingham Trent. So yeah, I can't even remember what the question was.
Oh no, I can't, don't worry. I think it was about how you got into knitwear design, and that does answer it, because you had the passion for knitting from your grandma, but so was it knitwear design that you wanted to study, or was it just like fashion and textiles, and then sort of the knitwear came later?
It started off as fashion and textiles, but then I actually found an article, I think it was in the Daily Mail. So during my gap year, my mum was freaking out. She was like, what if you don't go to uni? What's going to happen?
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I'll figure it out. And I saw this article, and it said, it could be a good idea to find a niche within fashion, because I knew that fashion would be hard to get into. Like, people tell you, like, the minute you say you want to be a fashion designer, they're like, oh, okay. Like, I think there was a like stigma attached. And I think at that time there would have been a lot of articles in the newspapers saying like Mickey Mouse degrees, which didn't make me feel great, but I still knew I wanted to do fashion. So it was probably in the same newspaper, there was this article on how to find a way into fashion by doing something niche like knitwear. So I thought, okay, I won't get to do print. I used to love screen printing. And I was like, oh, maybe there's a way that I can do it afterwards. Maybe if I just go in this direction, it will get me to where I want to go, and then I could do print for fun. So I thought, okay, Nottingham Trent, that's out of London. I want to have some independence. That works. Never been to Nottingham before, but I'll just, I'll apply. And I got in, which was great, made me feel great after having that rejection the year before. And yeah, it's quite good in a way to not know anything about a destination or the course, there was also a placement year, and I thought to myself, I still want to get a job. I want to be creative, but I want to get a job afterwards. So I thought, this ticks the box for the parents, but it's also what I want to do. So yeah, when I started, it was great. Like it was you get the typical uni experience at the start of the year. So you would go out, have fun, but then it would get so intense with the deadlines, and you'd be knitting until late. And we had to learn how to use complicated machinery. So these Dubier machines. I don't know if you might have seen a knitting machine, I'm guessing. Yeah. So they are. It's crazy. I look back. There's a video of me knitting, and I'm like, how did I even know how to like? It was frustrating. Sometimes you would spend a whole day doing something, and then it would just fall off the machine. But I think that is a good metaphor for life. You can spend ages trying to do something, and then it will just go wrong, and you have to just build up this resilience in a way, and know that you will get there eventually. You may have to keep trying, or you've just got to find another way, or like these machines were so temperamental. But I think it taught me a lot in so many, like, critical thinking. I used to love doing contextual research, you know, just I love turning things into projects even now. So I definitely learned a lot, and it's weird, like it's like a past life. I haven't done any official knitwear stuff since 2013. But I think I don't regret it. Like, I think I learned a lot, and it helps me with what I'm doing now.
Yeah, because when I read your blog, you said, I had this dream of becoming a fashion designer, but actually once I got a job as the designer at a retailer, it's not quite like the dream that I had imagined, because you're just constantly working to briefs, you're working to like cost budgets as well. So this cardigan has to cost £30, and so you have to scrap all the lovely details that you wanted to add to it. And so from there, is that where like blogging became a thing for you, that you could still express your creativity?
Yeah, I think because obviously I started the blog when I was in the second year of university, so it's like I always had, and you know, uni is quite creative, so it's like I had two different outlets for creativity. Then started working and realized, actually, I'm not really a technical person. Like, it's crazy. You have to make a decision on your career when you don't really know what that job entails. And I think I actually wanted to be a creative director, but again, you have to work your way up to be a creative director. And I don't know, it's weird to explain, but the skills I actually enjoy are not necessarily in that job, like going to meetings, being a fashion designer, or unless it was on my own terms, as a creative director. But I think the skills involved, like measuring fits. I like the research side of it, the ideas. You know, what colors are we going to use? What are the techniques we're going to use? How are we going to combine it? Like the collage aspect of knitwear, which can be quite fun, like finding your stitches and then working out where they go. But I'm not a technical person. Like my graduate collection, I would knit a dress thinking it was going to be a mini dress, and it would be a midi dress. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. But in a job, you can't really do that. So I was, that flexibility, that I couldn't like carry that to the job I had. So yeah, trying to go like backtrack. What was I saying? So I started the blog second year of uni, and that was fun because I got to write. I hadn't done much writing. Like, you still get to write dissertations in the degree, and you would have a contextual folder, but it was fun to do writing that was just for me, and it was about what I was wearing. It was like a diary of sorts. So I just enjoyed it. And then the community aspect and learning about other parts of the fashion industry. So I would go to press days, I would understand the PR and marketing side, and it's a bit more sociable, because when you're a designer, you are like you're in an office drawing, and you know, you might be researching. You might be going to exhibitions in the beginning, but then you're like shut away. Whereas PR, you're socializing, and I'm quite a sociable person, so I quite like that. I like building relationships and getting to know people. So I gradually discovered another side to fashion, and I was still doing that at my first job. But then I realized that I could see people getting other opportunities at that time. They were freelance, and it seemed like they were able to do lots of different things like writing or consulting. And I think I just wanted more of that. I think, I like I like doing my own thing in a way. And it's like, now I've had to figure out, how do you make money doing your own thing and not having a boss and doing all that other stuff.
Because I've read on your blog as well where you said when you first started out, people would ask you, are you making enough money to be a blogger? And you're like, you wouldn't ask anybody else that. Like, would you ask a doctor, are you making enough money to be a doctor? And I guess it was the fact it was so new that people, there was like a jealous aspect with it, that you can do this and get paid. Like, how is that possible?
And in the beginning, I wasn't making that much. So I was trying to think. So when I was a knitwear designer, when I told people I was a knitwear designer, they thought it was really glamorous and fun and interesting. And I was like, yeah, like it was just, so at each point in my life, whatever I was saying, I felt like I was being judged or people were assuming things. And it's only now I have a lot more self-belief and confidence, even though it can, like, sometimes I don't even want to talk about what I do because of the connotations. I prefer to just do it and not let the insecurities of others like affect me. But you know, we'll see. Sometimes I have good days and bad days. I feel like nowadays everyone's at home and they're all influencers in a way, and I'm like, ha, yes, now you are taking pictures, you're holding the camera, you're trying to figure out YouTube. So that tells me something else. I feel like a lot more people could benefit from being creative and exploring things that don't necessarily make money, because I know it's hard, you know, that's a crazy thing to say, and it's obviously a very nuanced answer, but I know now I can write an article and that could get loads of hits in a way, or it could not. But I would feel good for writing that article. Whereas if you were, you know, working at a magazine but furloughed, or, you know, you'd have to get the approval of an editor, or you'd have to pitch it and you may not write it. So it's quite nice to have an outlet that can be monetized. I know there's issues around that, but I think it's really helped me figure out who I am this whole journey.
Yeah. And what kind of things were you writing about at the very beginning when you started blogging? What was hot, or like what would get those hits at the time?
At the time, it was just such a community. Like, people, even they didn't really understand what I did. So I was literally like, I'm a knitwear design student, I'm gonna knit, I have to knit in this, and they're like, what is that, why? Like, I was so, obviously that was my life, but it was so different to what everyone else was doing. So I became like the knitting girl, and I would post pictures of my knitting machine, and I would talk about going to Pitti Filati and like seeing all the trend talks and all the textiles, but also what I was wearing as well, like personally, because a lot of fashion designers, you don't necessarily, or they don't express themselves through fashion as much as what they create. But I was doing both in a way. So I would, talk about my personal relationship with fashion and, you know, what stores worked best for me. Because I'm quite booby. So I was like, where can I get bikinis? And what, you know, I was expressing myself through colored tights and just talking about that. And then when I did my internship in New York, I would talk about what I was doing at the weekend. So I started to add in a bit more travel and lifestyle. And then when I finished my first job, I think gradually started opening up about that. So my contract got terminated. It was a freelance contract. And I'm trying to remember what happened. I think I had like a meeting with my manager, and she was like, so where do you want to go? Like, what's your plan? And I was like, actually, I want to be freelance and I want to do lots of things. And she was like, okay, let's help you. But then I didn't get the help. And I think because I was too scared to ask for help, it just didn't happen. So then my contract got terminated. And I just felt so awful, and I felt like I didn't tell my followers. I felt ashamed in a way. When now I look back, and I was insecure. I didn't get the help I needed. I didn't feel like I could ask for help. So obviously that happened. But then I went backpacking. I started doing more freelance writing. I did more blog projects, and gradually started going on a personal development journey without realizing. And then I started to become more honest on my blog. So I spoke about the experience of, you know, my contract being terminated, losing my sense of self, like not knowing what to say about my job, because at one point I was freelance even before that, because the company had us on those contracts because they didn't want us on full-time contracts. So in a way I could just say, oh, I'm freelance, and they're like, but in what? But I always had a lot of insecurity about that, but I started to talk about it, and I think a lot of people resonated with it, and vulnerability, and now gradually I've started writing about more more topics. I talk about race, travel from the perspective of, you know, being a Black woman, so what it was like going to Mexico last year, but also still fashion, but in a different, slightly different way. I'm a bit more conscious, trying to not buy as much. So when I worked in Topshop, it was ridiculous. I would hide things in the stockroom and then wait until they went on buy one get one free in the sale, then I would buy them all, and then like a few months later I'm like, I need to put it on eBay, because I was so excited about it being on sale. But now I'm not like that. I will think about something for months, and you know, if I'm still thinking about it, I might consider buying it. So I try and talk about that as well. I think it's just being open about the journey you're going on, and that it's fine if you're still figuring things out.
I think it's interesting when you said to the lady in New York, like, I want to do lots of different things, because that's what we now know as like a multi-hyphen life. And have you read the Emma Gannon book, The Multi-Hyphenate? Yeah, and of course, who hasn't? And it's like you were craving that, but it wasn't a thing at the time, and like you were just maybe a little bit ahead of your time.
I think so. I'm learning so much about the world of work. I've literally just been listening to this podcast called Is This Working? And they talk about money, productivity, like managers. Why are some managers so bad? Because again, if you're in a typical job, you work your way up and then you're a manager, but like you're not doing the job that you trained to do necessarily. And you're not trained to be a manager, and you've still got to do your job. You've got to do the technical aspects of your job as a manager, but then you've got to manage people. And if you're not a natural manager, then that can cause so many issues. You know, I've heard so many stories from friends, and that their managers have made them feel so bad and so insecure. And I just think everything needs to be flipped on its head and completely changed. But will that happen? Probably not for a while. But I like being freelance. You know, I'm so used to it. I find it so difficult to have a manager. But
yeah, I know. I think I was speaking to somebody about it earlier, how people really see staying in a job as being the secure option. But when I was at Asda and I left to go to a supplier, the guy that I worked for was like, don't do it, it's so risky, you're much better off in a big company. And 2 weeks or 2 months, I think, after I left, he got made redundant from Asda. I was like, I didn't like him anyway. He was a bit of an idiot. So I was just like, well, there you go. You're not necessarily safe in a big company. And I think that situation made me realise when I took the next step to go from a supplier to being freelance, I was like, well, there's no security in anything. And at the moment, we're recording this during the lockdown, and we both know that we're in a position to ramp something up if we need to make a bit more money, or we can like tone it down a bit if we want to have a bit more relaxation. And it's that control element I like, because I'm a massive control freak.
And going back to that, so the woman who actually got rid of me, she got fired like a year or two after, and I found out she had to, because she owned a second property that my friend was renting out, and she had to sell that property. And again, I don't wish anything bad on her, because that's obviously it's a bad thing. But I'm like, wow, it just goes to show, like, she was in the same position as me not so long after. And I think a lot of people who worked at that company, they've all been made redundant, or they've left to do sometimes a passion project. Like one girl, I think one woman is upholstering furniture, and I would never have known this. Like when I was at that job, everyone was like, no, I work here, this is my identity. And now I think most of them are probably doing side hustles, or they're doing something completely different. So it's so interesting. I'm like, will anyone be working in an office? I know there will be some people, that some people are just always suited to that, but I think sometimes we're forced into it, and it's not the best thing, and it's not always secure.
Because I guess that leads me into my next thing that I wanted to ask you, because there's loads of fun things about blogging, about creating content, making your own time, making your own money, but there's the thing that everybody sees, the beautiful front edge of that, but what happens behind the scenes, you know, everyone must say, oh, it looks so glamorous, it looks so fun. And I loved what you said on your blog about everyone in London lives two lives. Like there's the Instagram. I mean, most people do now, I guess, but
my perspective is that I always try and find a way. I will literally be clinging on. It's not like I have family in the countryside to like move near. Like, no, I want to stay in London. I know, this is all I know, the busyness, you know, the craziness of the tube. I can't believe I haven't been on the tube for such a long time. I want to go on the central line. When this is over, I'm going to be on the central line. I'm like, come on, sweat. No, like, but I'm used to it in a way. You find a way to make it work for you. So London, I know the back streets. I go to different areas. I love the fact that different areas are evolving. And, but yeah, no, there's annoying things about London. Blogging as well. It's like, I think the mental health aspects are the most challenging, especially because you don't have a manager. So there's no like progression. Like you have to figure out your own progression. You have to figure out that you even need progression. And it's not clear what that progression is. You know, personal development, you have to figure it out. And I'm lucky that I found a course. So when I was, I'd been freelance for a couple of years, and because I knew someone at a co-working space, she posted on her Facebook about a freelancing course in 2015, and I literally applied before the deadline. I messaged her, I was like, is there still space? She's like, yeah. So the day before I got the confirmation, it was a free course about freelancing, and different freelancers would talk about their experiences. We had an accountant, we also had this guy, a business development guy, and you wouldn't have even known that business development was a thing, but there's always that aspect in most companies. It's like, what are the opportunities? Or, you know, you'd have someone like negotiating these contracts or building relationships, that you wouldn't know this as a freelancer. Like, no one teaches you how to be freelance, and you only figure it out through making mistakes and, you know, messing up your tax return. So I'm lucky in a way, because that, listening to those people, they were honest and vulnerable. I think that is the key. Like, people being vulnerable, that can help you and make you feel like you're less alone, and actually help you figure out what you need to work on. So that was good in a way. And I spoke about that on my blog, whenever that would have been. And yeah, I'm still trying to work on these things. I think what I've realized is that you don't reach a time where you're like, I'm confident, I'm amazing, like I'm super productive. It's such an ongoing journey. And that can, you know, there'll be highs and lows. Like, even like now, I'm not used to working from home all the time. I would always go to a co-working space for certain tasks. So writing and emails, I would go there, and then photo editing, video editing, I would do that at home. So now I'm having to do everything at home, and it's really, it's challenging, because what have I done today? I literally was retweeting something about, you know, what did you look like at age 20? Like, I literally just go off. Now I'm like trying to figure that out. And again, I'm trying to be kind to myself, because in the past I've had self-doubt and beat myself up, but now I'm like, no, it's fine. Especially now, like, it's, if you need to do that to then get that bit of inspiration later on, then just do it. Because if you're mean to yourself, you're not going to get anywhere. So that's what I'm working on.
Yeah.
Continuous.
And what would you say to other bloggers who are starting out and are sort of experiencing that self-doubt, the perhaps like a bit of loneliness, or comparison is another thing that I know you talk about? What advice would you give to them?
I think you've just got to, I mean, it's part of it. It may never go away, but once you figure out who you are, so personally, and then on your blog as well. So it, you know, it depends on whether you want to make it into a business or not, but I think it's good to see the blog as separate, but figure out what's the niche. Like, are you going to talk about your own personal experiences, or do you have expertise in a certain area? So, you know, you could be amazing at gluten-free food. You may not want to talk about your personal life, that's fair enough, but it can be really helpful for other people if you struggle with things. If you know, there's some people I know are diabetic, or they've got Crohn's, and they might talk about that. They might have recipes or things that have helped them. Again, you don't have to be an expert. You could say, I'm still learning, this is what I'm reading, what do you think? So I think once you figure out your thing, you realize that no one else is me. Like, I'm unique. My experiences are my own. Like, no one else can be me. And also through knowing other bloggers who, they have 4 times as many followers, they earn more money, they look like they have amazing lives, but they're still very insecure. So it never really goes away. And I think once you figure out, you know, what you've got to dig deep. I think if you're insecure, this won't necessarily solve your problems, but if you're willing to do the work and start to notice the feelings you're having, then you can start working on them.
Yeah.
And like, if you want more followers, you've got to think, do you actually need more followers? Like, is there a reason, or is it because you want validation or attention? Because I think there's so many things that I can't even really explain. Like, I need a psychologist to just explain why do we want follow, like we get a hit of dopamine when we like things. It's like, what can that do to you if you have 500,000 followers and that's all you know? Like, what does that do to you? So I think just know, like, enjoy the journey. Like, part of me is happy in a way that I still have a lot of followers as well. If you think, like, put 26,000 people you can't put 26,000 people in a room, and people think they need 500,000. You need like an engaged audience ideally, but even if you have 100 people that really support you, to have 100 people in a room that support you, that is amazing. So I think enjoying the journey, like where you're at, because there's benefits to being at this level. And then obviously if I got to 500,000 followers, I wouldn't be able to reply to my DMs. Like, I quite like the fact that I remember people that I'm talking to and I have that relationship. So there's benefits to every stage, but I think it's a lot of people see others, and I'm like, now I don't even now I'm not really comparing myself, because I think things are so extreme at the moment. And now I realize I'm like, actually, I like doing my own thing. I'm going to learn a TikTok dance and then do a bit of writing and do my 2 courses.
Yeah.
That's what's right for me at the moment.
Yeah. So what kind of things are you enjoying blogging about? So compared to the colourful tights days to now, like, where are you at with it, and what are you excited to start blogging about going forward?
I think now I need to, because I moved house. So that was, I moved after like 6 years of living in the same flat share. So I still need to talk about the emotions around that. And I'm also talking about property and other random things that I didn't think I'd be talking about. And I think it's just allowing me to be creative in different ways. But I think part of me would still love to go back to fashion, because I still will talk about fashion and, the feeling you get when you find an amazing dress. Because that can be few and far between sometimes. Like, sometimes I struggle with sizing on the high street still, or you might lust after brands and they seem out of reach. So I still want to talk about that. And in a way, I would love to design again. It's weird because I was like, no, you don't want to do your own thing. You need to do something secure. And then I did the secure thing and that wasn't right. So part of me would love to revisit it, but I'm sort of going the very long-winded way and like indulging all these other things I'm interested in. But it's sort of in the back of my mind. I feel like things need to be reinvented, or there needs to be another way of going about it, perhaps, that I haven't figured out yet. But
I'm excited to see what you do, Kat, start blogging about. And earlier you said, like, it's a progression and a journey that never stops, but I'm going to call you a successful blogger in regard. I know some people are like, I could never say that about myself, so I'm going to say it about you. What do you attribute to maybe your growth so far?
I think it's so cliche, but I've always been myself, because like there wasn't any other option. Like, I did knitwear design. Like, it's not like I could lie. So I was literally like, I have to go and knit for 9 hours today. This is my knitting. Like, it was a bit different. And I know some people, they want to, look like other people. Like, some people they might idolize another blogger and think they need to dress like them, get the same haircut, write the same things. I've always, in a way, experimented, sometimes without realizing. And I think if you can draw upon your own personal experiences, so even through doing that degree, I became obsessed with the research. I used to love the research side so much that sometimes the end product wasn't the best. Like I think this happened in the first year. I got a piece of feedback and they were like, oh, we love all your research, but the end result, it doesn't really have anything to do with knitwear. Like, you got so into the research and then didn't really understand the brief. And I struggled with that bit of feedback, but now I can look back and I'm like, actually, I like the research bit and that's fine.
Yeah.
So now I'm gathering articles on, the state of the fashion industry right now, and it's helping me realize the context. I think contextual research is so important for anything. Like, if you are starting a blog as a business, perhaps you look at, what's out there at the moment, what's the market like, what are people talking about, but then what else, how can you innovate in a way? So I think having that perspective, and I think even dealing with that feedback early on, I'm quite used to I don't know, like not being told I'm amazing all the time, which that can lead to other issues. But I think now I could question that feedback, or I could take some of it on, or I can debate it in a way. And, you know, I think that skill is so important. But
yeah, I also saw on your blog that you said in the early days that you religiously posted like 2 to 4 times a week, regardless. And I think some people would be surprised at that now. Like I a lot of people say to me, how often should I be posting on my Instagram? And I'm like, well, if you're trying to grow it, you should be posting on there every day. But if you're just trying to maintain it, then equally, you only want to be posting when you've got something to say. Like you don't just want to be posting anything. So actually thinking about what you said and understanding who you are, what you want to say, who you want to say it to, and creating content around that, but showing up regularly and consistently is probably something that has paid off in your favor as well.
Yeah, and I think the idea of consistency like evolves. So back then, posting, you know, 5 times a week, that was normal, and people were actively checking. I used to use Google Reader. I would check Google Reader every day, multiple times a day, because there was no Instagram in the early days, and you know, Twitter was a bit different. But now everyone's on Instagram, and it makes sense to use it every day. But then there's a lot of people producing content right now. So if you have a day where you don't feel up to it, or you're still figuring stuff out, like, it's fine if you need to step back and then reflect. Because I've definitely had times where I haven't posted much, and sometimes like beat myself up about it. But then once I've come out of that period, I've analyzed how I was thinking, and now I'm like, if I feel like this, then I can't do this. So maybe I need to accept I'm going to feel that way, but then be kind to myself, like read magazines, watch a film, or go for a walk, or go to an exhibition, and then that might spark something off so that I am able to be more consistent in the future.
Yeah, I think that's something that's going to take its toll slowly during this lockdown, is finding new inspiration, because I think it got announced maybe at the end of March, so all the catwalks had just come out in February, so there was still like a lot of excitement and newness coming through, but it dries up very, very quickly. And like when you're saying, you might just be walking down and see a shop window or an article or an exhibition, but at the moment it's like, where are you going to get your inspiration from during this time? I think it'll be interesting to see.
I think that creatives are in the best place to weather this, because again, I know it's mixed up with your personal emotions, but in a way I see it as a brief. Like, magazines still have to create content, so how are they going to do that? And I've seen like Grazia, I don't know if they got like Laura Jackson to shoot at home. I'm trying to think of I don't know if she lives with a photographer. Even Zara, like, they're getting their models to shoot at home, and I want to know, like, how are they doing it? Like, they've sent them cameras? Do they have with photographers? Are they using tripods? So and then I've seen that ASOS, they're literally they've got clothes on hangers, which is interesting. But I think it's a brief in a way, and it's like, how can you produce a magazine but from home, and everyone's at home? You can send clothes to the photographer, you get the models to shoot themselves, or do you get the staff to talk about their own personal experiences more? So we're seeing some of it now, and I think it's harder obviously for, you know, labels that are used to producing collections, but I think it does need to be figured out. What is the answer? Like, how can you be creative but not produce as much? Or like, how can we have clothes that actually come out at the right time? Like, I feel like it's the fashion industry has been trying to stick with a system that's gone on for so long.
Yes, so outdated.
Like, will the coats actually come out when we need coats?
This is what I said.
They're freaking out. They're saying that the coats need to come out in July. I'm like, I've never worn a coat in July. And again, it's going to be interesting. I think I've been reading a lot of marketing reports, and there's 5 stages, and the first stage is anxiety, which is understandable. And I think a lot of brands are still in that anxiety and they're worried. But I'm like, it's an opportunity. It's come about for a very sad reason. But I see it as a challenge in a way, and yeah, it might I think everyone's being forced to use their creativity in a different way, which is really interesting. So I'm observing. In a way, it's like a research report for me. I've got my secret Pinterest board full of articles.
Yeah.
So I'm just watching, but I think it's interesting for me as well to be more reactive, and I think I'm used to being reactive in a way. I'm not a planner. I don't have a 5-year plan. So for me, it's like, oh, okay, what do I want to do today? I'm gonna post this meme, and that is me showing up, and then I might reflect on the meme tomorrow. Like, who knows?
Yeah, memes have literally got me through this, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, all right. Well, on the note of memes and content and sharing things, like, where can people find you on Instagram, or if they want to go and read your blog, where can they stay in touch with you?
Sure. So my Instagram is Iamkristabel, so Kristabel, and that's the same for Twitter. My blog is iwantyoutoKnow.co.uk, and I'm going to be showing up most days because I think it's quite an interesting time to be online. I also want to work on a course, so that will, who knows when that will come out, hopefully soon. I'm still like fine-tuning it, but now hearing that you created a course like within days, that's definitely given me a bit of inspiration. But I think I want to teach people a creative side to running an influencer business.
Oh, that would be good.
My approach, which is being vulnerable and turning things into projects, and just I'm trying to still work it out, and I think that has been the issue. I've been wanting to do this for a while, but I didn't figure out the method, and it's like now I'm going back to my degree ways, and I'm like, oh, actually maybe it's, you don't need to fit into this, maybe it doesn't have to be a really long book, but maybe it's something that evolves, maybe you reinvent what a course even is, like I don't know. Like, so I'm still honing it, but I hope to teach people how to be creative in this arena, and question things. Like, if you see someone saying this is the only way to blog, this is the only way to be a content creator, like, how do you question it? How do you not immediately feel insecure? So I think I want to delve into the mental health side of things as well, and share my resources and just things that have helped me along the way. Like, I've been doing this for over 11 years, so I must be doing something right. But yeah, that's my next goal. Yeah, I mean, who knows? I'll let you know.
Yeah, let me know. All right. Well, thank you so much for being a wonderful guest and sharing your honest and vulnerable approach. It was very refreshing to hear. And yeah, we'll stay in touch.
Thanks so much. It's been lovely to chat.